I remember back in 7th grade when I took Texas history. Like many students, I assumed history books told the full story, that historians were responsible for educating us truthfully and providing closure about the past, without hiding the darker parts of significant events. But each time I ask a friend or a classmate if they've ever heard of La Matanza of 1915, I usually receive the same answer: no. It's troubling that such a significant and violent event, one that happened in our own region, is rarely, if ever, mentioned in textbooks or school curricula. La Matanza, also known as Massacre of 1915, marks a period of racial violence in which of hundreds of Mexican and Mexican American individuals were unjustly killed, many at the hands of the Texas Rangers. My name is Joanna Carrion, and I'm currently taking History 2327 with Professor Juan Carmona. Through this course, I've been researching La Matanza and examining how historical narratives have been shaped by those in power, often at the expense of truth. During my research, I learned that early 20th century historians played a role in omitting key facts about La Matanza, specifically the influence of Anglo-Americans. White U.S. citizens shaped how this period was recorded and remembered. These historians, whether intentionally or under pressure, portrayed the Texas Rangers as heroic defenders of order, while framing ethnic Mexicans as threats. This narrative failed to reflect the full reality of the Rangers' actions and the brutality they carried out under the guise of law enforcement. This era also overlapped with the Mexican Revolution, prompting many Mexicans to flee their country and seek refuge in the United States. But instead of safety, they were met with violence and discrimination, the very dangers they had hoped to escape. The Texas Rangers were tasked with controlling supposed bandits, but in reality, they often operated with unchecked power and racially biased motivations targeting Mexican communities without evidence. Which led to my research question: how did the Texas Rangers justify their actions during the Matanza of 1915, and what does this reveal about law enforcement? Before I move on to the next slide, I want to issue a brief disclaimer. The image shown is disturbing, so viewer discretion is advised. On September 27, 1915, 4 men of Mexican ethnicity were shot and killed by the Texas Rangers. Two of the victims, Antonio and Jesus Longoria, were Mexican Americans who were simply riding home on horseback. This was just one of many such killings during that time, with numerous victims remaining unidentified to this day. The violence was so extreme that the Rangers earned the nickname Los Diablos Tejanos, or the Texas Devils. Although there were concerns about criminal activity in the border region, the Rangers often used suspicion alone to justify deadly force. Their hostility towards Mexicans was also fueled by historical tensions, such as resentment over the Mexican-American War and fear of revolutionary uprisings. This led to a widespread criminalization of all ethnic Mexicans, regardless of their actions. The image displayed is a postcard from the era. It shows 3 Texas Rangers standing over the lifeless bodies of 4 men, including Antonio and Jesus Longoria. This photograph was not taken for investigative purposes. It was meant as a statement of power and a clear display of racial dominance. It illustrates how law enforcement was weaponized to instill fear in minority communities. Although the Texas Rangers were reorganized under the Department of Public Safety in the 1930s, the harm they inflicted left lasting trauma. Despite the atrocities they committed, they were never held accountable and no formal apology has ever been issued. Looking further into the origins, it becomes clear that this violence was not a deviation, but part of the institution's foundation. The Texas Rangers were originally established by Stephen F. Austin, often referred to as the Father of Texas, to suppress indigenous resistance. The scope later expanded to target Mexican populations. According to Doug Swardson, a research professor at the University of Pittsburgh, the Rangers played a significant role along the Texas-Mexico border, working closely with the U.S. Army and state forces. However, their operations often reflected a broader agenda of white supremacy. The absence of legal restrictions allowed them to engage in acts of brutality and mass executions without accountability. As mentioned earlier, the role in ending violence did not equate to justice. The Rangers may have brought to an end to certain conflicts, but they never acknowledged the trauma they caused, nor did they reconcile with the communities they harmed. This history reminds us of the danger of law enforcement agencies operating without oversight, especially when racial bias informs their actions. Despite this painful legacy, the Rio Grande Valley community has taken upon itself to honor the victims of La Matanza, including Antonio and Jesus Longoria, as well as the many unnamed individuals who were lost. By confronting that history, we can ensure that their histories are not erased. Acknowledging both the good and the bad allows us to pursue a fuller and more honest interpretation of history, and to advocate for justice moving forward. These are the sources that contributed to my research. I highly encourage you to learn more about La Matanza of 1915, especially if you come from a Mexican community like I do. What's even more meaningful is that there is a memorial site in San Benito, Texas, dedicated to commemorating the victims of La Matanza, a powerful place to visit and reflect. Thank you so much for watching and taking the time to engage with this important history.